Good afternoon, everyone. The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walk this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. And with that, I'll call this meeting to order at 4:03. Council, any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Seeing none, administration.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Nothing from administration, but I would like to introduce a new staff member who's attending today. Director Barbeau will introduce.
Good evening, Council. I have the pleasure of introducing Charlene McDougall. She's joined the town as the Legislative Services Clerk, and you'll be seeing her face often in Council as she learns the rope.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. McDougall. With that, Council entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda for March 7th, 2023, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we now have a motion on the floor. We are waiting for 4 more. Two more. For the sake of technology, do you vote in favor?
Please.
Okay, and remaining to Councillor Stashik. It's not coming up. Do you vote in favor? Okay, and Ms. Davy Campbell will record that. That is passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our council's minute for adoption. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Council. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to move that we adopt the regular council minutes for February 21st, 2023, and the committee of the whole meeting for February 28th, 2023, please.
2028, correct?
Yeah, 28.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, we'll wait for Ms. Davy Campbell. Oh, that one there is a technical difficulty. We will vote in the traditional fashion. Council, all those in favor? That is Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor, can you turn your camera on?
Oh, did I not turn it on?
Perfect.
Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Are you in favor of supporting the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. That'll bring us to our citizens minute with council. Today, this is an opportunity to share your thoughts. You have 1 minute. Please state your name and make your way forward.
Greetings, members of council. My name is Bernie Kreiner, and I'm actually here on different capacities. First of all, I wanted to thank the councillors who attended our food bank open house and better understand the operation and how things have been growing, unfortunately, due to the increasing prices and the challenges of our community, how busy it is there. Also wanted to let you know that the pathway to the park project is at a milestone. Sometime this month, we will actually be making our application for phase 1 of that project to go from near Safeway all the way to Wild Horse Kinky Park. And we're having a final review meeting on our first set of drawings after various challenges and working through things. So it's a really important milestone. But the main thing I come before you to discuss is something that's sort of come to us a bit scrambly. All the nonprofits in Alberta that choose to run casinos do so in our area with St. Albert. St. Albert's profits and Camrose's profits are pooled for purposes of cash distribution. to the nonprofits. So there's 500 nonprofits working with the St. Albert Casino, about 600 with the Camrose Casino. Camrose is financially challenged. There was permission to establish another casino near the airport, and it's taking some business away. And the Louis Bull folks are also building a casino on Highway 2 for the Queen Elizabeth. And so they made application to reestablish their casino and move it to South Edmonton, where there is no casino in any portion of the south half of Edmonton. And they were turned down. This is somewhat inconsistent with the AGLC's directions and policies, long-term planning, but nonetheless, the decisions to turn them down was made because the City of Edmonton mayor and council felt that it would be a detrimental effect to the nonprofits in the City of Edmonton, including, and the Community League Foundation chairperson was quite adamant as well. And that was the main reason. One needs to understand that the average proceeds from a casino done in these two rural areas is between 20 and 25,000. The average casino proceeds for the City of Edmonton casinos is around $70,000. And the net effect of moving a casino into South Edmonton would be about a $2,000 to $3,000 reduction in the Edmonton area casino profits per group, and a comparable $2,000 to $3,000 increase for the groups in Camrose and St. Albert zones. And that's really, if you think of the middle belt of Alberta from Jasper all the way to Lloydminster, that's the two areas that the nonprofits for Camrose, the Camrose Casino and the St. Albert Casino, are involved in. The Camrose Casino folks have appealed this decision, which is going to be heard on March 13th very quickly. Rotary Club just got wind of this earlier this week, actually. We've submitted a letter now to get registered that we would support this change for Camrose Casino because it's in the interest of creating a more equitable process. We urge politicians and councils in the region to do the same. I believe Jasper's gotten engaged through some nonprofits that have approached their municipal council, but I don't know of any others in this region. So it's a bit of a scramble, but I'm here to alert you. I've passed a letter that the Rotary Club has written to your mayor and to the acting CAO so that you're aware of how we've written our letter that needs to be filed fairly quickly. I leave that with you and invite your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kreiner. I've forwarded your email to all of council earlier today, and I'll solicit information from them and see what we can do. And if there's some support, I'll at the very least send some words towards this cause after we investigate and kind of better understand. But thanks for the high level explanation, and we wish you success in hopefully not having any impact on our not-for-profit organizations here in Hinton.
Well, the point is that we are impacted already. The Camrose business is going down, and the profits that might have been 23 or 24,000 are targeted to be about 20 now. And if it's going to go even more downhill if the Louis Bull project goes ahead.
Correct, to minimize the future impacts.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kreiner.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a minute with council?
Hello, I'm Hank Smith. I'm actually the chairperson of the Town of Hinton Library Board, as well as the chairperson of the Yellowhead Regional Library Board. About a week ago, good old Alberta government sent down their budget for this year. And it looks like libraries got a little bit of an increase. And so we want to show you our due diligence, and it was brought to our attention. We talked about this last night in our board meeting that we had at the library. And again, we do know how much it is, but we're in the process of organizing ourselves, put it that way, so that I just wanted to tell you that with our funding being the way it is, and most of it, 85% comes from the council and the town itself. We would like to any of the increases that we do get to come back to you guys, and so that you could use it in other areas. This was brought to our attention. We had quite an argument of what we should be doing, but again, it comes to pass. It's not our money, it's the taxpayers' monies. You have has shown us great respect in giving our budgets to us. I think it's inversely for us to do it as well, to show transparency. And so you can expect a certain amount back as we move forward. And that's the real reason. That the second one is, I believe that we have set a date for when we would like all council to come to the library to review our reserve status, as well as and other areas, so that you guys can get informed. That date is now set for June 19th. Okay, at 5 p.m. in the Tom Peterson room. Okay, an email will be coming to you guys shortly on this, so you don't have to write it down. But again, since we've made that decision, I think maybe it's good to inform you guys as well. And again, thank you for your continued support. I have to admit the library usage is going through the roof, guys. Okay, we have great partnerships now with other areas of the town, especially with the museum at this point. And I have to admit that I haven't seen so many people in the library for the 8.5 years that I've been a part of the board. So thank you very much for supporting us in this venture. It's paying off dividends.
All right. Thank you for the update, Mr. Schmidt. Anyone else with a minute with council? Seeing none, that'll bring us to Councillor Taylor.
If I could, do you mind just getting back to the issue with the equitable distribution of casino proceeds? I don't want to make a motion directly, but I would urge the mayor to consider submitting this letter of concern regarding this issue fairly soon, because it's a time sensitive issue. So I think you have, I forget the time frame that Mr. Kreiner said, but 7-10 days or something like that to get it off. And ultimately, I believe the issue is that it would create a more equitable distribution for the charities that we have in town. So it does nothing but benefit our nonprofits. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, that'll bring us to our delegations and presentations for this afternoon. Our first one is S.T.A.R.S, presented by Glenda Farnden.
Hello. It's certainly great to see all of you again. I'm very pleased to bring you your annual update. First and foremost, I want to draw your attention to the fact that we're approaching almost 40 years of providing service in Alberta, and we are going through a bit of a rebrand. So you'll see a little bit different logo there. So I've had some municipalities ask me, oh, they saw that and they wondered if it was an imposter. So I was like, no, we are going through a bit of a rebrand. We're taking into account all the learnings that came from the COVID sector, those COVID years, and we're bringing that forward. So, we've always been, our mandate has been, saving lives. We want to take that one step further now and saving lives and providing critical care anywhere. So this is our new vision as we move forward. So certainly S.T.A.R.S continues to be fueled by generosity. Previously we had a 10-year long-term affiliation agreement with Alberta Health Services from 2010 to 2020 for 20% government funding. That continued on a year-to-year basis during the COVID years as well. Last spring, Alberta Health Services made an announcement that they would be looking to move to 50% government funding for S.T.A.R.S. Well, I'm very pleased to say at the end of last year that we did receive the top up for 50% funding. So now that was for 2022. So we are in current negotiations as we speak to see about trying to secure another long-term service agreement with them at 50% funding, which would align Alberta with what we're already receiving from Saskatchewan governments and certainly more than that from Manitoba governments. So as we go forward, but it is great news, and especially in the last few years, we've seen so many challenges. We've lost so many community fundraising events. We couldn't events could not be held. The calendar campaign, could not have a presence in rural communities. So that's down. Now we have the challenge of trying to rebuild some of those community opportunities as we move forward. But certainly we have lost some significant support in that area. So let's look on the expenditure side. So the orange and the blue represent aviation and clinical expenditures. So more than 3/4 of all expenditures are aviation and medically related. The smaller piece is the S.T.A.R.S Emergency Link Center, which is our dispatch center out of Calgary, as well as this is our 4th year in a row that our base operations and administration costs are at 12%. We're very proud of that fact. CRA allows charitable entities up to 35% administration costs. This is our 4th year of remaining at 12%. So we very much feel we're doing our due diligence. This is a map of everything green that you see across Alberta, as well as into northeastern BC, is a municipal supporter of S.T.A.R.S. It is very much a united effort, and we are really starting to bring the entire province together, more than 90%. We have just added 4 new rural municipalities and 4 urban municipalities, and 3 more are pending. They have asks in front of them. So again, it is a united effort. Together, we are all working in the sense that we ensure that we all have access to a robust health and safety network, not only across the province, but across Western Canada, where we have our 6 bases. So they're all either on a fixed rate or per capita rate, like yourselves as well. We appreciate the fact that Town of Hinton, you as well as Town of Edson are both on a standing motion, meaning that you have us as a line item in your budget each year. We very much appreciate that. As we move forward, there are 7 municipal leaders that are represented on the helicopter. They are all on standing motion at significant dollars, ranging from $100,000 per year to $210,000 per year in the red boxes there. We're very excited that this spring we will be adding 2 more municipalities, which will have received logo recognition on the helicopters for Sturgeon County as well as Birch Hills County. So Sturgeon County is going to be the first central Alberta municipality in S.T.A.R.S history to receive this recognition. And of course, we are building on those regional partnerships. So that means, where towns like yourselves and Edson, along with the county or municipal district in the boundaries that they lie within, that are also partners. So we're really building on that. It's a bit of a challenge in your area, as you'll see. We still don't have Yellowhead had declined to be a partner with S.T.A.R.S. As well. I did present to Parkland County this morning, and there seems some great interest there. So we're very hopeful. Lesser Slave River, there's ask pending between the town and the county, as well as Two Hills. There's an ask pending as well. So we still have some movement forward though. So, we're very excited to bring all of Albertans together as a united effort. So let's have a look at this 5-year overview for Town of Hinton, as well as within Yellowhead County boundaries. You're pretty well equally busy hospitals between Edson and Hinton, as far as, bringing in like scene calls from rural areas as well. These are included in the hospital statistics, where local ground ambulance has, they were first responders and picked up the patient and brought them to the hospital. But then because it is of a critical nature, then S.T.A.R.S is called. So this is why, to give you a better sense of what's happening in your area, why we include those critical interfacility transfers, because they are of a critical nature and S.T.A.R.S has been called. Overall, Town of Hinton residents are served by 2 bases, Edmonton and Grand Prairie, fairly equally. As well, for Yellowhead County, overall, they average within the whole county about 36 missions per year. So that's pretty significant, about 3 a month. And this represents if we're just talking mission cost only, it represents over $250,000 annually in mission value to your area. You know, we all travel and commute throughout other areas. So within Yellowhead County, it's about 33% each. You know, it's fairly equal, whether it's town of Hinton, town of Edson, or rural Yellowhead County for the mission volume. And already 4 missions this year so far. Oh, town of Hinton averages 12 to 13 missions per year, specifically for the town of Hinton. So 1 a month. This is information I'm very excited to bring to you. So this is 10 years in the making. So let's look on the left-hand side first. This is utilizing patient postal code, no other patient information other than the postal code where they lived at the time they were flown by S.T.A.R.S. So including all municipalities within Yellowhead County boundaries. So you can see, and we could only go back to as far as 2010 to collect data. Now, keep in mind that this does not include other missions that may have been flown throughout this area, but we didn't have the patient postal code. This is only utilizing the missions that we did have the patient postal code. So you can see 253 residents throughout Yellowhead County boundaries. When we're specifically talking Hinton, then 82 residents since 2010 that have a Hinton postal code. But more important and more interestingly enough is the right-hand side. This shows you the red dots represent all the different areas where these specific residents were flown by S.T.A.R.S. So you can see that all 3 bases in Alberta have served residents within Yellowhead County boundaries and town of Hinton, and across 2 provinces, almost into Saskatchewan to there. I think that's Lloydminster, into northeastern BC as well. Some municipalities, there's red dots across the entire Western Canada. That's the important piece. That is a testament of the value of our partnership, that your residents have access to S.T.A.R.S across Western Canada, and more importantly, at no cost to them because of our partnership. So, you know, the Emergency Link Center, they receive over 36,000 emergency requests every year. So this is averaging about 100 requests per day. We fly about 1 in 10 of each one of those. Last fiscal year, we flew over 3,500 missions. In the beginning years of S.T.A.R.S, we flew 50 missions per year. That's quite significant difference now, over 3,500 missions across 6 bases in Western Canada. Half of those missions are in Alberta, occur in Alberta alone. So we are still the dominant factor of utilizing the service the most. Also, you can see with all of the different information, you know, this provides us, they are the link center to allow us to have all the pertinent information for every single patient, whether it's location or who else might be available, all the different resources that are available. If it's a remote site, then, you know, we have over 4,000 regular yearly registered sites. So industry and areas, some municipalities as well, if they have staff that are in, you know, in the field locations, they may register those sites too to have that direct access to S.T.A.R.S and to S.T.A.R.S transport physicians. So our physicians are now also taking a shift in the emergency link center. So they are available immediately for on-call to be able to have FaceTime, you know, with rural physicians in the Hinton Hospital as well. If they have a really serious patient, you know, our transport physicians provide medical guidance as well as procedural guidance. So this is certainly an advancement. And again, something that we learned during COVID times, right? That we want to pursue and expand on. So now I'm pleased to announce that we did receive the 10th and final H145 in October of last year. So we have a complete fleet of 10 now. We are completely operational with H145 only across all bases in Western Canada. We are transitioning. The first few that we did receive, that's a 4-bladed one that you see in the picture, but all the rest are 5-bladed, and we have just a couple that we are transitioning ourselves to the 5-bladed. We just completed one transition out of the Edmonton base, so they will eventually all be 5-bladed systems, which will provide increased lift and load capacity, as well as this particular model requires less maintenance intervals, which is going to transcend into increased availability of the helicopter, as well as reduced cost. And it does outperform our previous model in speed, range, and fuel efficiency. Still has the same powerful twin engines. Of course, advanced avionics and superior safety features, including that enclosed fenestron tail, so no more exposed tail rotor. And of course, we are celebrating over 20 years now that we were the very first civilian organization in Canada that was granted the access to night vision goggles. And 50% of our call volume is at night. So that's a significant factor for us. So we celebrate that. I wanted to also bring you, though, with this latest technology and 10 new helicopters to take us into 20 or 30 years of service now, for our children, our grandchildren, it's really important to understand about the back of the helicopter as well. So I wanted to bring you a little bit of insight into that. It is very much, as you can see, an intensive care unit environment. I'm just going to show you just a few of the medical equipment. So we'll start with a handheld I-STAT lab. You can see that's the size of a cell phone, but it provides vital test results in less than 2 minutes with only a couple of drops of blood for hemoglobin, blood gases, even electrolytes. All vital information when we are running multiple pain management drugs for trauma patients. The Hamilton T1 ventilator is a fully featured ICU ventilator, the same as what you will find in the intensive care units in the hospital. It provides optimal ventilation therapy, especially made for transport systems. Better yet, it accommodates all sizes of patients, adult, pediatric, even neonatal. We always carry 2 units of universal blood. That's blood that can be accepted by anyone. We are very proud of the fact that we were the first helicopter EMS program in North America to bring this life-saving measure, because S.T.A.R.S is number 1, we're all about critical care. Number 2, we are about innovation and finding those ways as we move forward. So this has definitely made an advancement in trauma patient care. It has significantly shown us that it is the difference between life and death for many, many patients. The video laryngoscope. Now, this is an advancement in intubation, and it was widely used during those COVID years when so many patients needed to be intubated. As you can see, our crews can view the trachea right on the video screen. This is especially important when we're managing difficult airways for such patients as trauma, maybe a burn patient, maybe someone that's been crushed on impact. You can understand that we must be able to, intubate immediately, effectively, the very first time, right? For someone that can no longer breathe for themselves. The EZ-IO drill. Now, this has been around for quite a while, but each year they continue to perfect this little item here. So it's a very tiny, small, little handheld drill, only used in time-sensitive, life-threatening situations. It allows us to have immediate IV access. So this is really important for stabilization and pain management. It allows us to just drill a little hole in a shoulder bone or a leg bone and start immediate IV. The handheld ultrasound. Now, this provides test results for the rapid diagnosis of collapsed lungs, any kind of trauma-related internal bleeding, heart abnormalities, even fetal compromise in ill and injured pregnant mothers. So now, with the way the new helicopters are equipped, they have integrated Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and satellite connectivity. So now with these test results, we can actually transmit the test results to the receiving doctors at the receiving hospitals while we're en route with the patient, so that they can expedite their treatment plans as soon as the patient arrives, so that patient can go directly into trauma surgery or, neurosurgery, cardiac cath lab, whatever the case may be. We always carry a plethora of pain management drugs, including the thrombolytics for the stroke patients. It does require that a stroke patient or query stroke patient wouldn't require a CAT scan before we can apply the thrombolytic drugs. So we have agreements with all hospitals in Western Canada that are on the stroke protocol so that we can alert them that we are en route with a query stroke patient, and then they are ready to accept that patient, and we can, get them in the CAT scanner in order to identify whether or not we can apply the thrombolytic drugs and virtually turn everything around without residual effects for many, many patients. We also, 25% of our calls, transport physician flies along as well. We carry the physician's kit, which includes central venous catheterization lines, even a temporary pacemaker if it may need to be inserted in a heart patient so that we can stabilize them while en route to the cardiac cath lab. So this is just a small example of some of the equipment in the back that really does make it an intensive care unit environment. But of course, it also stems from the fact that we have the highest level of critical care. Your critical care expertise in your crew is also very necessary when you're utilizing the latest in technology. So this year, in October of 2022, there is an air medical transport conference. It's a worldwide international conference. Each year, S.T.A.R.S, we hold our own internal conference, our internal competition, amongst all of our crew members to allow one team of two to represent all of S.T.A.R.S at this particular conference. We've participated in this worldwide conference 20 years now. We have placed in the top 3 all 20 years. This last year, our team from Saskatoon, they won first place. This marks the 7th time in those 20 years that S.T.A.R.S has taken first place worldwide. We're very proud of the fact that we're bringing the highest level of critical care to your residents. And in closing, first of all, I want to thank the town of Hinton. I want to thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your dedication to S.T.A.R.S. And thank you for your support. We really appreciate the partnership that we've shared since 2002. More than 20 years we have shared partnership. Your current pledge of support has been $2 per capita. On a standing motion, we very much appreciate that because that gives us the sustainability that we require. We've seen a lot of municipalities that are seeing a lot of fluctuation in population and census. That is really changing the face of how things are for S.T.A.R.S. In the past few years, the mission rate just keeps rising. So costs are going up, fuel costs are going up, costs of medical supplies. It just continues and continues to balloon. And so we're really looking for more of a sustainability piece. So we've had a lot of our municipalities that have moved to a fixed rate that will stay within their budgets. It's a little easier maybe for yourselves as well. And for us, then we know what we can count on. So we're just asking for your kind consideration to round up just a slight little bit to a fixed rate of support and alleviate that fluctuation for us. So our request to you is to consider $20,000 per year as a fixed rate, continuing on a standing motion so that we are in your budgets and we're not forgotten as we move forward. It's, when I reference the value within Yellowhead County, it's a significant amount, and that's only just for mission costs. It's $10 million per base for 3 bases in Alberta. So it's a significant challenge as we move forward. So we appreciate your consideration, but most of all, we appreciate your partnership. A life is saved every day, literally every day. And partnership makes it possible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Glenda, for the presentation. What I'll do is I'll open it up to council for any questions. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, It's great to see all the great work being done. I guess I just wanted to ask a little bit about, I think the last time you guys were here, you were setting up a pad in Wabaman to be able to land aircrafts there. Was that successful? And have you seen differences in services with that addition?
Very good question. I was just presenting and thanking Parkland County this morning for their help in making that possible. In this particular area, we see a lot of downturn with, ground response, as well as then it's a critical nature, and we need to have a key rendezvous landing area. So that was one of the factors, was that this was identified that particular area was a good area for a rendezvous with ground ambulance, so that we could, arrive on scene, bringing that intensive care unit environment. The critical care starts the minute we reach the patient. So then also getting them faster to tertiary care as well. So it has really proven to be excellent. Parkland County even mentioned that they thought they might have another area that would be of consideration, that they would like to look at doing this again in order to help some of those long distance areas, where we do require ground ambulance, and it is very helpful. So as we move forward, you never know, we're also very hopeful to continue to work with the town of Hinton and see what we can do to have something co-located with your hospital, because you have a very busy hospital, and it could make a significant difference, not only for local patients, but as well for your neighbors.
I have one more question. I'm just curious, because I'm looking at the map here. There's a lot of green, but there are some still patches of that's not covered. So those areas, because you mentioned the amount of services in Yellowhead County. Unfortunately, that area is not covered by funding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So just out of curiosity, so it's all the other green areas that's compensating the funding for those areas that aren't in that funding group. Is that correct?
Well, I like to think of this as a united effort. It's like a group life insurance policy. We're all putting something, everybody's doing their part, right? And then it's just there for whoever needs it, right? S.T.A.R.S is, we're in our going into 38 years of being a charitable entity, and we want to maintain that. We want to be there for whoever needs us the most, and maybe having their worst day in their entire lives, right? You can't imagine how many patients that we have, patients that actually they're distraught and fighting our crews, that they don't want to get in the helicopter because they were worried about the bill. If they can speak or talk, we're having to assure them that there is no bill, because this is a group effort. And that's why we're so proud of the fact that we have this united municipal effort, So I'm very hopeful as we move forward that we will kind of close the gap and unite all of Alberta.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Seeing no one, Glenda, thank you, obviously, on behalf of council for everything that you do. We love our partnership. We hopefully will see that map completely green in the future. Glad to see that there's an increase in funding. There's 8 new communities on board, 3 other ones pending. My only request is that their logos aren't bigger than ours, by adding these new people, but tremendous work. We look forward to supporting you. I know I can't say for years to come, but we've really enjoyed this partnership on an essential service that, I've said before should be funded. I think provincially or mandated to be funded by every community in Alberta, especially since every community uses it. So thanks again for your efforts, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Yes, thank you so much. I did bring you a couple of things here. Impact report to highlight the value of your partnership. Something the latest newsletter, but I'd like to point out the story on the back. In S.T.A.R.S his 38-year history, we flew from Grand Prairie the record mission. So it's quite an interesting story, saying that this particular mission in a straight line was like flying from Calgary to Los Angeles. So again, and then of course, bringing you a calendar for your office. And I'll leave a calendar with the fire chief as well, and one for the police department. All of them are partners, right? And chain of survival, we would not be able to do what we do without them.
Thanks again. Really. appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for your time.
That'll bring us to our second delegation for this afternoon, and it's 5.2 Forest Heights fence presented by Mr. Woodley.
Okay,
Just give me a second.
yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I can just click it.
Yeah.
The button will go up there or what? You'll move it up there, okay. Walter Woodley, representing Forest Heights community. Come here to talk about our community and the impact to it and the request for a fence for it. Yeah. So we can move on. Also, yeah. It's a unique community. I don't know if you guys pre-read this or not, but it's a unique community up staggered lots, not facing anyone else. It's got its own 9 homes, right? It's bordered on a hill. It's bordered by businesses around the front and the trailer court to the back. I see the roofs of the trailer court, so we are up. And except on the west side, it's kind of level with the properties there. These 9 residents on Tree Loop we had a pretty forested entrance. You can see how it's cleared on that west side, or no, east side. You'll see it in the next slide. Separating it from commercial and town activity, benefit for residents for privacy, low noise, low light exposure, and low traffic. Sustain an inherent value of the community. So the community was, because it was private, nice, easy entrance that was more secluded. It affected the value of all those homes. If you look at the second one here, you can see the how the trees were all here on the entrance to this community. And you drive in here and it was pretty much secluded, you know, which affects the value of the homes in that whole 9 houses, the property values. And in 2018, and during the changes there for the projects or the development, they removed that forest and pretty much put parking lot all around it. It impacted the value of the exposed properties and the inherent appeal and value of the community as a whole. So, and you get a community like that, if you went in and you took one of those large properties and you subdivided it, that would impact that community as well. Because any one house is more than 10% of the value of that community. Like, so you want to do anything to it, it's going to impact that. Whether you brought in, I don't like these short-term rentals either. So if they come in there, it wouldn't be very good. Anyhow, you can see that it changed that entrance and the exposure. We'll start going through the properties that it impacted. This one you can see in the lower section. It's this property right on the end, 101 Forest Heights Drive. These, you know, in the second year after when they pulled it off, I got a picture there from April 30th, 2019, where the light exposure from the removal of the forest bears straight into the property, into the house. And then in 2022 on September, looked at it again. And here you can tell that this just goes straight the way the light draws along the side. The unique thing is it's nice to be elevated, but when you remove that, you're at the same height as all the parking lot lights and all the stuff, not necessarily the parking lot. So there's a lot of light exposure that came in because of the from primarily the Ford dealership there when that forest was removed, right? So that affects also on this side of it, we removed everything here, and that became a parking lot which you can see from this one here, how the cars are parked here virtually. So the exposure here affected his privacy, affected the noise, fumes, lights, everything for him. That's just enjoyment of the property. So we'll take a look at property number 2. This is 102 across the road here. You know, it was a community of Forest Hill, forested entrance was separating it from commercial activity, benefiting residents, privacy, low noise, low light, low traffic, because it's closed loop, local traffic only. So that really did change this property here. You can even tell from 2019, here's a picture I took after they had removed the trees. This is me standing on the road right there with my arms up like this, taking a picture. So you can see that goes right into their living room, right into their property here. This is me. This is a picture of me right here beside their garage, standing by the vehicle. So this was all brought up a long time ago. And I think they tried to do stuff. They didn't do anything, or nothing really solved the problem. So we had requested stuff in the past that was not put in. The light exposure from the forest removal is at a height that shines directly into the windows. The head of my shadow, taking a picture from the road, is the bottom of the living room bay window. My shadow in the other picture in the back corner of the car park in front of the garage. So it's pretty obvious that it's impacted value, sound. So you've materially impacted that property. Let's go down here. Okay, so this is 109. This is the one that's on the front. I just threw this in here. It's a video I took in 2018 after they removed the forest, about just the noise impact. Here's Walter Gilchuk's property, and here, let's just go around here. We have I see some honking going on. This truck that just dropped off, but yeah, the forest here kind of ends. We can see at the end of the parking lot, and this is his property. This is a kind of actual change from a forested area like next door there to what we have. Not sure if ever going to be able to get rehabilitation. Yeah, as this forest went all the way out to the edge of that parking lot behind the hotel. It went the whole way, and it was and realizing that the tops of the trees were buffering us there, some evergreens and that it made a pretty good buffer, and it was a fair distance. What was that, mine? I thought I muted that thing. I got it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I have a lot more here, but I didn't want to play it. I just wanted to let you see the noise. We'll go down to this next one here. So that property, with that exposure and those trees removed, it destabilized a lot of the trees there. You'll notice that you take away a big hill and they cut it down, they cut it significantly down. The trees that are existing there don't have a good root base. They are more susceptible to falling. As you can see here, this is in 2018. There's one here that's leaning like here. This is out across from 101's property. Here's one laying in Walter's place, and here's another one leaning, which is different than that one that's laying. Numerous trees have fallen, further directs exposure. The impacts the exposure and value of this property. Here's one that actually this has happened, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. They haven't done anything about it. This is a tree that fell into that 109 property, and this is you can see the roots here that ripped up. It hasn't got an extensive root base. So these trees have been destabilized by not having that wind protection of the rest of the forest. There's a geotechnical one done on that hill, but I don't know if they followed up with the soil stability on the side or not. I think that was up to the developer to do, and I don't think it's actually in any kind of compliance requirement. So this, since the owner of both these properties is the same individual, it's Griffiths Investments. They haven't much. He bought this property. after, so they didn't really have, he doesn't have much initiative. Nobody's lived there for a couple of years. It's just blowing up. Okay, so here's the side of the house, 109. There's like I say, nobody living here. I was standing next to the tree here. You can see the lights that go right inside the property. This is and this is my shadow standing next to the window here. This is my shoulders down. I was standing next to the tree over here, but you can see the light sources coming in from different spots that make that tree shadow just about gone, and other shadows coming in. So the light exposure goes directly in the house with the forest removed, and now a commercial parking lot at the bottom of the hill right next to it. No one living here. Changes have significant impact on the value of this property. Makes it difficult for someone to buy and make this their home. From my shadow, the top of my head is about 6 feet. At a minimum, to address the light impact of this property, an 8-foot solid fence above the height of where I'm standing would have been installed. Would need to be installed to give it the privacy it needs. So this is my final slide. I just want to make a note that this was reviewed and we have determined that our community was unfairly treated in this by the ombudsman. So Forest Heights fence, reduced material value, marketability in residential properties from a direct parking lot, light exposure, noise, fumes, reduced privacy, commercial activity. As per Municipal Government Act of Alberta and Hinton, land use bylaws. There are bylaws and regulations for the protections of residential communities from this kind of change impact. We are requesting the town install a fence as per land use bylaw 108361 non-residential budding residential area shall provide a solid fence approved by the Development Authority. We are requesting a solid fence on the north side of their community to a height of 8 feet above the living grade. So on the 109 property, it comes and it just starts to crest the hill. And some of the property line there is slightly just over that crest. So you might need 8.5 feet or whatever the posts are to require to have an 8 foot above where you stand. We're requesting a solid fence on the east side of the community to a height of 6 feet above the living height. It's critical that a caveat be put on the title to ensure the fence is maintained by the town or whoever the commercial entity. I don't really care. Shouldn't be the community's responsibility to protect it from the commercial activity and to keep that in effect for the future because of this change. So realistically, however you do it, that's the way it should be.
All right, Mr. Woodley, thank you for your presentation. I'll open it up for to council for any questions. Councillor Race.
So back in June of 2016, when all this was happening, we weren't dealing with the LUB bylaw 1088. It was, I think it was 960. And 1088 didn't come into effect, the draft, until July. So the 960, did the non-residential district have the same wording in regards to fences? Would you know?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through the rest of council. I can't speak to that because I would have to do some research to determine if the provisions were the same. However, the requirement for fencing or buffer between two zones, for example, would come into play when the development permit was applied for and not necessarily when the rezoning was done. So we would have to look at when the development permit was issued and what the requirements were on that development permit compared to the bylaw.
May I? So right now, we do not know what the development permit requirements were right now.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Through the rest of council, I have no doubt that staff does know. I just can't answer that question at this time, so I would have to get back to you on that.
I have just one more question. I see you sitting here by yourself.
Yes.
And there's how many people live in that beautiful area?
Well, there's 7 actual residents. I actually have a signed off kind of thing from all of them stating I have full ability to negotiate or discuss or work on their behalf here. So they could be doing it via the internet. Like Phil Sufak, he's in Arizona or wherever he goes down to the States. I talked to him a couple of days ago. and Paul Seville, lives east of Edson. He rents the property there. The other people I've talked to, I've got a feedback to bring this forward, no issues. And I sent this PowerPoint to everyone in the community. So they are aware, very aware of what this is. They're very aware of all the things that have happened.
Thank you, Mr. Woodley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. My question was the same as Joanne. But since she got the answer that she did, I'd like to put forward a motion to administration to give council a briefing on the requirement for a fence between the residential and the non-residential property for this development. And that's nothing more than what they committed to.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, we have a direction on the floor. I have Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I guess really just a question to administration. From administration's perspective, is there more follow-up that admin is already planning to do with the existing landowners, or is administration essentially without council's input believing that the current process is terminated or done?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, to the rest of council. There are a number of processes in play. I understand that a number of them are closed. I can't speak to which ones at this time. And that the others are in play, as you say, in progress.
Can I say something?
One moment. Councillor Magoon, are you good?
Yeah.
Mr. Woodley?
Yeah, this pertains to the ombudsman letter that was sent, the town letter that was sent to me from Lorraine Walker, which I shared with all of you guys back last year on the unfair treatment. And it listed a numerous follow-up items, and it identified in that the land use bylaw of 2016 was part of the issues with this problem, this event. So those follow-up items, and I've Jordan's aware of them, or Jordan's aware of them, and he has said he's going to follow up on some of them to me. So, and I think you closed the development permit way back in 2019 and absolved the developer of any responsibility here.
Councillor Magoon, are you okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Council, any further questions, comments before I call this to question? I'll be in support of a briefing. I think whether we do it through the informal channels via email and getting it or supporting it publicly to get a briefing, I'm good to try to get some clear information on what's supposed to be exactly done or not. So I'll support this direction since it's a high level briefing. Then we can go from there. So I have no issues with supporting it through this this method. Council, anything further before I call this a question? Seeing none, I'll hand it over to Miss Davy Campbell. Miss Davy Campbell. Oh. Move, yeah. It doesn't give us an option. It just says move. Oh, there. Okay. And we are missing Councillor Race. Oh, and Councillor Taylor, are you in favor?
Well, I am, but I couldn't see the motion that I was voting on come across the screen.
Oh,
So
there you are now captured. That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Woodley, for your presentation. And we look forward to getting back to you after we have that briefing from administration.
I'd be welcome to come and talk to you guys again.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, we'll be in touch and we appreciate your time and your perspective on this.
Yeah.
That'll bring us to our action items for this afternoon. The first one is 6.1 Trails Level of Service Policy CS-7201, Acting CAO Juke.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, and I'll just hand this one over to Parks, Recreation and Culture Manager Heather Way.
Thank you, Acting CEO Juke, through to council. Good evening. This matter, the policy for trails level of service, was first before you in January of this year. The new policy template has been developed, which is why, as you can see in the direction, this item was to come back in February. We've taken an extra month to ensure that we have developed a consistent template for our levels of service going forward. We're just looking to ensure some consistency there. During that time of 1 month, we did get some direct feedback on the policy from the West Yellowhead Trail Society, excuse me, as well as the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee. That was done via email, just asking them for some input with respect to what we're currently delivering as a service to the community, and any advice or things that they'd like us to look into for future iterations of this policy as we continue to work on our trail connectivity over the next number of years. So you'll notice that on page 33 of your agenda, we have some bullet points there that demonstrate for council the considerations that make up a level of service with respect to trails. I won't list them. They're all there for you guys. So if you flip now to page 35, section 3.2 of the proposed policy, I did neglect to include some price information in the report. So I just thought this was a good area to go over that with council. So as you can see, we've split up our trail based on type and how we deliver those services. So we have our paved, gravel, boardwalk, natural, and then we've also included bridges, stairs, and viewpoints, which were not typically a consideration historically as included as a trails asset. So that's kind of a new way of us looking at that. So with respect to costs, so for our paved, gravel, and natural trails, typical maintenance through the summer months is 200 hours by a senior operator, and then another 200 hours just with a parks operator. Total wage costs for that are around $3,500, benefits $3,000. Materials used over that time are typically around $4,000. With our, pardon me. And then in winter, obviously, with fewer trails open, we cannot do any trail maintenance with respect to gravel and things like that during the winter months. So total costs, benefits, and the like, wages for that one is $3,000 during our winter months. Boardwalk is separate. As council is aware, we do have a separate line for boardwalk maintenance. Currently, that budget sits at $60,000. However, as we know, that's a bit of a moving objective given the developments that we have with our boardwalk. So we do anticipate that number can be reduced as we repair our boardwalk area. With that in mind, I can take questions at this time. Thanks, council.
Thank you, Ms. Way. Council, any questions? Councillor Taylor.
So the budget for this policy basically is about $70,000 a year. The 200 hours for the 200 hours each for the staff members, plus the $60,000 for the boardwalk. So that's sort of the overall policy budget for this policy.
Administration.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I'll turn this over to Manager Way.
Yes, thank you, Acting CEO Juke, through to Councillor Taylor and the rest of council. That's approximately correct. However, I would say that we have not in recent years expensed the full $60,000 for the boardwalk, and we don't anticipate doing that in future years as well at this point.
So this policy doesn't put an extra cost on for trails level of service. It keeps the cost the same going forward in the future, basically.
Precisely. Thank you for that question. As council will recall, when we have additional trails works that needs to be conducted, you saw that through an operating business case. So when we do require those additional funds, the amounts here in this policy are for our day-to-day operations. If we had a huge weather event or something like that, where we're requiring additional funds to fix areas, you'll see those additional requests come through the budget process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Magoon.
I'd like to move that administration, or pardon me, that council approves the trails level of service policy CS 7201 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll hand this off to Ms. Davy Campbell.
I have all four of those options that showed up.
I have none. Oh, there we go. I have 4 recorded votes at the moment. 5. We are missing Councillor LaBerge and Councillor Race. Okay, for the sake of technical difficulties, we'll ask to vote manually. Oh, I have Councillor Race. Are you in favor? Yeah, but it's not coming. Okay, so that would that passes unanimously. Council, anything further for this item? Seeing none, thank you, administration. And that'll bring us to our second action item for this evening, bylaw 1177, borrowing line of credit, acting CAO Chuk.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, and I'll turn the presentation over to Director Barbo.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. The item that's before you this evening is an existing line of credit that the town of Hinton has set up. It's a tool that we have used in the past. There's no annual fee through ATB to have this item. There's no renewal fee and there's no non-usage fee. So it is just a safeguard, if you will, for the events that we may need in the future. This item is before council because ATB's legal team and their underwriters have determined that it's prudent for municipalities to bring this bylaw forward to their councils on an annual basis to ensure that there's full awareness that this vehicle does exist. In the past, the line of credit has always been at around $2 million. For a long time, there was a letter of credit. That letter of credit has now expired and we received judicial notice that we can remove it. So administration is before you today recommending that we retain the line of credit instrument through ATB Financial. We reduce it to 1.5 million and the composition of it being a revolving line of credit of 1.3 million and $200,000 for our MasterCard coverage. With that, is there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Barbeau. Council, any questions or directions? Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that council give first reading to bylaw number 1177, borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenses. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call this to question. And that is passed unanimously. Council, any appetite for further direction? Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council gives second reading to bylaw number 1177, borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenses, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor for second reading. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. And that is carried unanimously. Council, any appetite for anything else this evening on this item? Councillor Hawes.
Before I do, I guess I have a question to administration. I see that recommendation is for first and second reading, but nothing for third reading. Is there any reason not to do third reading this evening or look for unanimous consent?
Thank you, Council, for the question. Simply before you today with two readings, as it's always been my standard practice to not go to Council for three readings in one sitting unless it's an emergent issue. We do have until March 31st to have the documentation submitted to ATB, so I wanted to provide Council the opportunity to have the time lapse between the readings if they so wished. If your choice is three readings in one sitting, I will certainly entertain that, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barbeau. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, I'd like to seek unanimous consent for third reading, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor for unanimous consent for third reading, which would be then followed by third reading. Any questions, comments? Councillor Magoon?
Yeah, I think I'll speak to it only because it wasn't on the recommended actions. I'm in support of it. It's a pretty straightforward borrowing line of credit. We're actually looking at reducing the current line of credit. For myself, this is just the standard practice of doing business. I'm very comfortable moving forward tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, any further debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. No, it's not coming up.
Through to the chair, can you just vote on it?
Okay, we
Can't seem to
will
get it in.
just vote manually. Council, I'll be calling to question unanimous consent for third reading. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that council give third reading to bylaw number 1177, borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Race, or Council, we have third reading on the floor. Any further debate or questions? Seeing none. Administration, would you like me to do this manually? Okay, we will go to our traditional voting way. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for the second action item for this afternoon? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Barbeau and administration. That brings us to our last action item for this evening, West Central Airshed Society membership. Acting CEO Juke.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, and through to the rest of council. This report is coming back to you on the subject of membership to this society for the town. On February 7th this year, council received a presentation from the West Central Airshed Society on their monitoring, research, and reporting activities in the Hinton and the Yellowhead area. As a research society, the WCAS is neutral, working to inform the public and government and industry about air quality and emissions that can impact health and the environment. The town of Hinton currently supports the society with a location on the hill. But it's otherwise not funding the society as a member. Benefits of becoming a member are listed in the report. And I'll just add one other factor, which is that the society has demonstrated interest in developing educational programming for the public at the Hill site. So administration is recommending council approve the town becoming a member at the prorated cost of $1,250 for the 2023 year. With that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Duke. I have Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the first question is where is the money, the 1250 going to come from out of the budget?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to Councillor Hawes. We did have a discussion about that today, and we do have a line item that does have adequate budget in it to fund this. It's membership and registration from the CAO office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. A key decision point for me on this is whether or not we fund this work will be whether the town of Hinton can get useful information that presumably we can use for lobbying or strategic purposes, which I think is the purpose of the information. And to me, that kind of boils down to us getting long-term information, an annual report that's broken down into the 4 types of pollution we face here in Hinton. That being the road dust, the rural sand, the forest fires, and occasionally from the pulp mill. So can we get, I'm going to vote for spending this money. I want a useful report. Administration, can we get an annual report from these guys that we can start getting long-term trends so we can use those for the 4 types of pollution? Or are we just going to get one number where we can't break out the pollution types, which to me is not so useful?
Ms. Duke.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, and through to the rest of council. We will get a report that will break out the pollutants. I can't recall the number, but the website does show about 10 or so different particular types of pollution that we might experience in the Hinton area. And we can get levels on that. We can get the report in different styles, so we can get a sort of a calendar day by day, or I think also the levels of each individual pollutant. However, the society is not a watchdog that will point to a particular emitter and sort of identify them as a source of extreme pollution. That's not the role of this society. However, the society is a forum that emitters do belong to. So it provides a place for everybody to come together as stakeholders and discuss the issues that are occurring and ways to mitigate those problems for the environment. So that doesn't really answer your questions directly, but it sort of does as well. It's just not that the kind of report we're going to say the mill did this or the rural sand dunes are causing that. Rather than that, we'll get chemical analysis that we can then use to come up with some solutions for our community.
Thank you, Ms. Duke. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, okay. I'm just not understanding how that helps us. That's all. But how does that help us directly with lobbying for something?
Is that a question for administration?
I think so.
Administration.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I'll try to answer that a bit more clearly. So again, it's not the case that the society is going to point to particular emitters, industry, for example, or environmental sources, and say this particular type of emitter, this person or this individual company, should say, is causing difficulties in our air quality. Rather than that, we're going to get reports on what kind of air quality challenges we're facing. And from that, we should be able to determine where those emissions are coming from. And perhaps with that, come up with some strategies to solve that problem. That makes sense.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, I guess my question is around the motion. Now, I think the recommended action indicates that council approved the town of Hinton's 2023 prorated membership for $12.50. So my assumption would be that if there was any further desire to continue that membership into the 2024 year and on, that would require a separate motion of council.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Michaels. That is the case. You might see this come back as a civic agency proposal at some point if it's going to be a recurring thing, as council has indicated is preferred, so that there aren't, cold call requests every year.
If I could just speak to it, Mr. Mayor. If it's the will of council because they feel like there's potentially useful information that can come as being part of the membership, I'm certainly supportive of a test run year. One of those things that I felt when I was looking at the statistics from S.T.A.R.S is that if we're going to benefit from something, I'd like to pay my way. You know what I mean? I have pretty strong feelings about that. But again, I leave it to the rest of council for your thoughts in terms of how valuable you feel the information is. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, anything further, any direction? What would we like to do with this? Councillor LaBerge.
I guess, from my perspective, I don't know. So the question is to administration, is this information that you would find useful for decision-making go forward?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, and through to the rest of council. Currently, the town of Hinton does not have any environmental policies that I'm aware of. However, the outdoors is a very important part of living in Hinton, being able to enjoy the outdoors and being aware of what the environmental impacts of that would be on the public, I think is important. If there is, if there are air quality issues that we need to address, we're going to need some science to point to for that. We can't just say things like, people aren't well or people are complaining. So I do think that there is great benefit, and I'm very interested in the programming that may come forward in the air monitoring station up on the hill. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Juke. Councillor LaBerge, you're good.
Okay.
Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, I'd like to move that council approve the town of Hinton's 2023 prorated membership of $1,250 for the West Central Airshed Society. And if I could speak to that, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, for myself, this is one of those things. Growing up in Hinton, you hear people talk about your whole life, right? It's quality of air, people's health. Obviously, it's an area of concern and that people have vested interest in. So if there's data and science that can go behind these sorts of concerns that we can monitor for a year, and then at the end of that year, we can, have a look at what the reports come back with, what the science comes back with, and see, is this something where our membership has had value for us as a community? I think $1,200 is worth that look. And if at the end of the year, we find that the data isn't, hasn't been helpful, doesn't provide us with any kind of insight that's really valuable to the community, well, then of course, we have the choice not to continue on with that membership. But I'd rather give it a chance so that we can have some data behind that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. A question to administration. Would what they're measuring, and you may not know this, and if you don't, I'm sorry for asking, would they be measuring maybe dust, pollen, ash, particulars from the mill? Are these things that we would see?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through the rest of council. Yes, particulate in particular, no pun intended, is of great concern for people that are recreating outdoors and people that are living in Hinton and people that are visiting Hinton. What the particulates are composed of, the size of them, and the degree, the number of them in parts per million, for example, I think is important information for those people who are considering recreating outdoors. We've seen some significant challenges with smoke, obviously, from wildfires, but it's not the only thing that Hinton faces. So I do think that there is some value to that, and it would be nice to see reports on that on a regular basis, if only to refute that Hinton does not have good air quality, which in my experience, it very much does. There are, as I said, about 10 or 12 particular chemicals that the society is monitoring in our area, and a report on, for example, for an entire year, showing the levels of those in our community, perhaps in comparison to other communities, I think would be of great service to us.
Thank you very much. And I will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. I'll be in support of this motion. I'm happy Councillor Magoon put it forward for many reasons. One is that there's no alternative. We live in a community also that is full of industry. And lastly, I'm looking forward to see how this evolves. We've never had this. Now we're contributing towards it. And as I said, there's no alternative. This is a great resource for us to be aware and answer some of the questions and to pay our share towards questions that are asked almost on a weekly basis in our community. So to me, this is a small price to pay, and I appreciate the work that goes into it. And I look forward to seeing how, like I said, how this evolves, to see if there are ways that we can get more specific information. But this is a good start, so I look forward to supporting this. Thank you. Council, anything further? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, not being able to break it down by those 4 pollutant types is concerning to me, and I'm not understanding exactly how we're going to use this. So I need to understand that before I would vote for a motion like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, anything further before I call this to question? Seeing none, I'll call this to question. And that is carried 6-1. Council, anything further for this item? Councillor Race.
Sir, I have nothing further for this item, but I do have nothing for this item, but I would like to make a motion on a previous delegation.
I will go to acting CEO Juke on the process of doing a motion. What we'll do is I'll call a 4-minute recess and then we'll reconvene. Thank you. 6. And before we move forward, council, anything further for our action item? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our notices of motion. Council administration, any notices of motion?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Nothing was received.
Thank you. That'll bring us to our reporting for this evening. And I will start with our councillor on the screen, Councillor Taylor.
Nothing to report other than I went to the Performing Arts dinner, and we have a marvelous, talented performer amongst us, Councillor Magoon, but that's an aside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week I had the opportunity to attend the Hinton Food Bank open house. It was very, very informative. And also on Friday, I attended the dinner theater and I was thrilled with the performance of our dear councillor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor LaBerge.
Thank you. Well, last week I had the opportunity to attend the board meeting for the Community Futures West Yellowhead, and I continue to be impressed with the work that they're doing. I think I sent through to the rest of council today the survey that we did, the triage survey coming out of COVID. How was business feeling and where would we head? The organizations identified those issues raised and has proposed solutions go forward to work with the business community, make those changes. So hats off to Community Futures and the work they continue to do.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I have to report, I too attended Community Futures West Yellowhead last week, but I have nothing to add on in addition to what Councillor LaBerge reported. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to say thanks to the kind comments. That's really nice. It's an aw shucks moment. But I'll actually take a moment to speak to first of all the talent of the Break Leg Theater Group. and the hard work that goes into putting on performances as an organization. I hadn't had the pleasure of working with them yet from an actor standpoint, so that was nice. It was awesome. Lots of hard work, great people working together to put on something for the community. And then I'd also like to thank the Path, the Guild, for the awesome organization and support and collaboration that has to go into making one of those performances go off without a hitch, because you're not only putting on a performance, through the break leg group, but you're also still working to facilitate all the other stuff that's happening in that facility at the same time. So yeah, it's just a lot happening, a lot of really talented people working to get these sorts of things into our community, and it's greatly appreciated. So thanks to everybody. It's really good work. I was very appreciative to attend the Town of Hinton Library Board last night on behalf of Councillor Hawes. It's been a while since I was able to attend one of those. And it was a board that I had been on for quite a long time. So it was really nice. Things that we talked about that I think council will be interested in, as we looked at a reserve policy and as it relates to essentially a 5-year capital plan. So the one thing that was loud and clear to me as a councillor who hadn't been to one of those meetings in a while is that the library board is very invested in fiscal responsibility and accountability. They're looking forward to that meeting on June the 19th to talk to council about, what that looks like for council in terms of funding, requests for allocations and those sorts of things. So I'd strongly suggest, council, if you're able to attend, they are very interested in sitting down at the table with council on that date. We also looked at a level of service policy. So again, they're going to come back to council with, what do allocations do in terms of levels of service? How does that impact what the library offers? There was a bit of, we went through our traditional reports, and Hank already spoke to it, but it's very accurate. There's a lot of activity happening at the library, lots of circulation, lots of patrons. It's very active space. So it's impressive to see what's happening. The one difficulty, and I won't get too much into the details, I think Councillor Hawes is probably best suited to explore that. They are having difficulties with their copier, their photocopier contract and getting support in. And I think that's something council should be aware of, because I think currently the touch to get out of that contract is somewhere in the neighborhood of $9,000. So that's not a small amount of money. And they are trying they're desperate, I suppose, to try and get technicians in to deal with the problems, and they're not really having a lot of luck, and it's not due to lack of effort on their part. So other than that, I'll leave the rest with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report, but thanks to Councillor Magoon for attending in my stead last night. But yeah, to let council know, it's an ongoing issue. Unfortunately, there was a contract in other organizations that made accessibility to the technician for a photocopier easier to access, because there was more work in the community. Currently now, it looks like we're the only person using this particular brand, which has now demonstrated very difficult to get a technician to our community. So basically, yeah, we've got a contract, but to get out of the contract, it could cost the organization about $9,000. Now, our manager has been in discussions with the administration, town administration, to look at getting on a joint contract with their provider, which then would give us better access. So, but to stay with them, the danger is, yeah, we may not have a photocopier for quite some time. I think we still have 1.5 years or more on the contract. So we're in discussions to see what we can do, but it might look like that might be the best option at this time. But yeah, we'll see what the manager comes back with. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. For myself, nothing to report. And with that, to Acting CEO Juke.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Nothing to report.
Thank you. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Hawes.
I'll move to go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.